The next question is, what is an unbound local error? And then you want to write a function that causes one to occur. Normally, we don't encourage people to write functions that cause exceptions. But this is, well, an exception. This is an unusual case because you want to be able to show that you understand an unbound local error. So here's the basic idea. When you write a function, right? So let's say I have here x equals 100. And now I say def, right? Let's say add to x. And I'm going to say x plus equal 1. And then we're going to say here, print before x equals x. And then we're going to run add to x. And then we're going to say after x is this. Right, so basically what I'm doing here is I've defined a global variable 100, right, global variable. And here I'm adding 1. So when I print, it'll say before x is 100. And then we're going to run our function, which is going to add 1 to x. And then afterwards we'll print x is something. Hopefully it'll say 101. But that's not what's going to happen. Instead, we're going to get before x equals 100 and then unbound local error. So what's going on here? Well, remember that functions in Python are compiled. When we write a function, the body of the function doesn't actually execute right away. Rather, the body of the function is converted into Python bytecodes. And those bytecodes tell Python what actually it should do. The bytecodes there are going to reflect the fact that x equals x plus 1. Really, when we say x plus equal 1, what we're saying is x equals x plus 1. And remember that whenever we have x equals, whenever we have assignment inside of our function, that means we are defining a local variable. By definition now, x inside of our function, add to x, by definition, x is a local variable. So what's going to happen? Well, Python's going to know this, and it's going to say, okay, we're going to take the value of x, and we're going to add to it, we're going to add 1 to it, and then we're going to store that in the local variable x. So actually, before and after x, our global variable shouldn't be affected whatsoever. So why are we getting an error? We're getting an error because normally in Python, it's not possible to have a variable that exists but doesn't have a value. Normally, like in line 4 here, I define x, I give it a value right away. I can't just say int x or string x. It just doesn't exist in the language. But what I did here is sort of kind of like that. Because what I've said is x, the local variable x, is going to be equal to x plus 1. Well, what's going to happen when the function executes? Well, always in assignment, it's right side before left side. So we're first going to execute this x plus 1. Python's going to say, oh, great, x plus 1. What's x? And it's going to find out that x is a local variable. So it says, okay, local x, what's your value? But local x doesn't have a value yet. It is an unbound local. Binding is a fancy term for assignment. And so basically, we get this error because we are referencing this local variable x before we have given it a value. Now, this only exists because Python is compiled and because Python keeps track of local variables versus global variables. So this is how we can cause an unbound local error to occur. Now, this happens all the time in people's functions. I mean, I'm not going to say it happens every day, but people encounter this all the time, and they're often very confused by this because they're saying, oh, no, I just wanted to add 1 to the global variable x. Well, if you want to do that, then you actually have to say global x. And what does that do? That tells Python, don't create a local variable x, even though you see in line 8 now, x equals. Don't create a local variable x. Rather, all references to x should be global. And now it'll work just fine because there is no local. And if there's no local, we can't have an unbound local. All right, so if you ever encounter an unbound local error, this is what has happened. Somewhere in your function, you are using the variable's value before it has been given a value. And if you want to generate that error, then this is a pretty easy way to do it with x equals x plus 1.